post-traumatic stress. Are people familiar with that or have heard about it? And again, this would have sort of grown up in the 1990s, and this started to have been named at that stage. Initially around people working with survivors of sexual abuse, day in and day out. Let's say survivors of child sexual abuse. The story they often use to explain it is where you have a counsellor who does that sort of work all the time on their weekend off. They're walking through the park, and they see in front of them an elderly gentleman and a young boy veering off the path towards the hedge. And immediately that counsellor who does this sort of work starts to feel anxious and almost gets that physiological arousal. The palms start to get sweaty, that the heart rate goes up, because what she sees happening with that elderly man and that young child, she thinks it's going to be a sexual assault, a child sexual assault. Her friend walking beside her, who works in the bank, thinks it's a grandfather and the child on his grandson on a day out going off to get the football that was just kicked into the hedge. So the thing about vicarious trauma, dealing and working on a cumulative basis with sadness, with loss, with pain of other people, it can, what we call in psychology, alter your cognitive schema, or put simply, change the way you look at the world, okay, change your outlook at the world. There was another example of a judge in Australia who was doing lots of child sex abuse cases, and after a couple of back-to-back cases of dealing with child sexual abuse, he went home on a Friday evening, and himself and his wife were minding their young grandchildren for the weekend. And he went upstairs, and she's bathing them, and there's lots of giggles and laughter in the bath, and obviously they're in the bath, so the kids are naked. And he walks in, and immediately his mind starts flashing back to the images that he's been watching for the last week in the court case. And again, he gets very distressed and asks, is this normal? Now, what I would say to you about this is, it's not abnormal, okay? And I think, again, we must rush not to pathologize things. The work that you do, and I'm sure you all have examples, those of you who've worked through this profession, of sad and difficult cases that play on your mind, that impact you, because you're human. But the real question is, do they impair you? If they're starting to impair you, then there's a difficulty, then there's a problem, then you need extra supports. But I think this is something, it's an important marker to put down that, yes, the work is challenging and it's difficult. And again, we'll look at what the supports that are there. But collectively, these hazards of the healing professions, as they're known, collectively are called compassion fatigue. And you can see there an example for a qualitative piece of research. So the consequences of this, I'm sure, as you can hear what I'm saying, are significant, okay, at many levels. First and foremost, for the constituency that you serve, the women, the babies, and their extended families, but also for yourselves and for your own families that you live within. So you can see there there's very significant consequences, and also for the organisations. Now, it's not all gloomy, as we said from the start. Let's look at it from a strength-based approach. And I quite like this. I think it's important, rather than looking day in and day out at sort of the burnout, the lack of retention, because that in itself can pull you down, can't it, talking about the negative all the time. And I quite like the title of this paper. And I think it's a better way as well, from a research perspective, of looking at how you might put in positive changes, or how you might alter it. And again, the good news is, this is from a study that I did with my colleagues in Trinity, with barristers, and I'll show you that in a moment, a little bit of it. But if you look at the last bit there, at a personal, professional and organisational level, if there are appropriate supports, then people can step through and work with compassion and also with passion, and with satisfaction in what can be a very demanding profession at times. But I think what's important to note is that it takes all three, okay? It's not all on you, okay? It's about, and that's what I want to look at, because I think there is this emphasis on resilience, isn't there? Again, one of those other words we hear all the time. Okay, so, what is resilience? There's, as I say, I'm doing my PhD in it, and many years later, I'm still not quite sure what in fact it is. And I just threw up there sort of a couple of examples from researchers. And then you start to wonder, well, should you even be trying to define what it is at all? Because it's, in some ways, it's sort of it's a multifactorial thing, isn't it? And this was written in relation to the nursing profession in particular. They asked, is resilience meaningless jargon, or does it actually represent a real solution? Okay? And what I would say to you is that it's not a panacea. Okay, as I say, I think it's hard to even understand what it is. But it's important to interrogate it because in some professions, it's starting to be written in as a competency. And especially with the regulator sitting here, they know more than anyone that a competency equals something you're measured against, and if you fail to live up to that standard, you can find yourself in front of a fitness to practice committee. So words matter. I mean, I've seen, especially in the UK, written into some professional guides and competencies, emotional resilience, but that must be shown. As I say, I'm embarrassingly 6 years into a PhD and I don't know what that means. So it does, words matter. But I think what is clear is that, and this is the way the research is going, is that resilience doesn't any longer just reside in the individual. As I said, it's not just a personality trait that some people are resilient and some aren't. It takes a joint effort. It's a joint enterprise. And it's dynamic, and it can fluctuate, as we said, throughout your career and in response to things. I think it's also really important to ask, is resilience always a good thing? Because again, you assume it is, don't you? The resilient individual is the good individual, or how do we make an organisation more resilient? So, at countless talks I've been to, this quote is often put up about resilience, and it's from Marcus Aurelius, one of the great classicists. And again, it's, be like the headland on which the waves continuously crash. It stands firm and gathers the waters around it to rest. And I have been invited to understand that that is a resilient individual. But when I look at that, I don't know about yourselves, but I see coastal erosion. There's a cost to that. Yeah? And if you think of it, the way resilience, I suppose, before it became this sort of buzzword, people would talk about children being resilient, wouldn't they? They'd say, children are very resilient, they bounce back quickly, they're very resilient. Yes, they are, but also if you look at teenagers, and sometimes I liken people starting out in their early careers as sort of teenagers, and sometimes, as you know, with teenagers, they may be getting on okay, but they can be muted, silent, okay, not communicative, sort of isolating themselves from other people, okay? And yet they may be doing okay, but that isn't a very good resilience. And looking across the water to the regulatory, the Nursing and Midwifery Council in the UK, so I do stress this in the UK and not here, as an evaluation was done that found a culture of resigned resilience, which said, okay, people are either leaving because the organisation isn't supportive or it's difficult, they're either leaving, or even worse, they're accepting poor standards of work. So yes, they're resilient, but not within a good environment. So that's why I say it's important to interrogate words and not just to accept them, okay? Especially, as I say, as there's a bit of bandwagoning around this whole area. So what I prefer is the words of John O'Donoghue, our great Celtic poet, where he says, when the wind catches the corn, it does not stand stiff and erect against the force of the wind. Were it to do this, the wind would rip it asunder. No, the corn weaves with the wind. It bends low, and when the wind is gone, it weaves back and finds its own poise and balance again. And to me, that is more like the resilience that I think is attractive, is appropriate, and is also more real. Would you think yourselves? It makes more sense. Now, what I want to do is just turn briefly and give you a little bit of a flavour of some of the research that I've been involved in, because again, one thing, it's very easy to stand up and, and say, this is what I think resilience is, but I think the most important thing is to actually stop with people and, for researchers like myself to learn from the professions what they believe resilience is, and it's only that way that changes can be made. So, as I say, if we maybe you're happy to take a little shift and have a look at this. And as I said, I believe in the importance, and we're in a university, and I think you can see this. I think sometimes sort of having a factual backup is important. I remember once, to my absolute embarrassment, I was in Amsterdam delivering a talk along these lines, and I put up that slide, and everybody started really laughing, not just the titter that you kindly gave, but really laughing. And I suddenly realised I was wearing an emerald green dress. And I didn't burst out of it, all was well. Anyway, so this is the area of my PhD. I think that the title may shift and change, but I'm doing it obviously in Trinity College. And so it's a mixed method study. I've got about just under 900 social workers from Ireland, the UK and Canada, and so both quantitative and qualitative, a large questionnaire, and looking at professional well-being and what it means to them. So just to give you a little flavour, So one of the studies, so compassion satisfaction, it's like the opposite of compassion fatigue. And it's very much that feeling of the pleasure and positive feelings you derive from your work. And these can all be measured. So everything there was measured by psychometric scales. And then Shirley, who is a social work, who works in a social worker working in child protection between 8 and 12 years. So I asked the question, has the work you do changed you in any way? And if so, in what way? So this is what she said. As recently as last week, I asked myself what would my life be like if I worked in a bank or as a teacher. We all have our own bad days, but would I have a daily sense of foreboding heading into a school or a bank? Would I have made different choices in my personal life? I feel wounded myself by being part of so many other people's pain and sadness. I no longer have the capacity for normal, frivolous things. I'm tired of pain. I'm tired of sadness. I don't care about meeting new people. I hate small talk, and I can't watch sad movies. So this is an anonymous survey, and that's the response Shirley gave. And then I asked as well in the survey, what is your understanding of resilience as it relates to your profession? And Shirley wrote, I used to care. Now I pretend to care. This is what resilience means to me and so many of the people I work with. So that has that resonance of that resigned resilience, doesn't it, that we were talking about. But then looking at it, and again from the strength, I suppose, based approach, her colleague Vicky, again the psychometric scales showing a very different picture. And in response to the questions, now interestingly, Vicky was over 25 years working in child protection, and she said, in response to the question, has the work you do changed you in any way? She said, it has changed me profoundly. She said, and on many levels, it is a privilege to do this work, to support people in difficult times and help them realise their goal. I have grown tremendously as an individual through the work I do, and that issue of growth is very important. And it has dramatically changed how I move through the world. The people I work with have taught me about compassion, patience, strength, and perseverance, and also how to laugh when things are difficult, that importance of humour, okay, with your colleagues. And remember with Shirley, how she wondered what life would be like if she'd done a different profession. In contrast, Vicky says, I cannot imagine doing any other kind of work. And then in contrast, when asked, what is your understanding of resilience? So in contrast to Shirley's very, very resigned and quite alarming, I suppose, definition of resilience, Vicky says, resilience in social work, now as I say, it's in social work, but means to be able to allow the tragedies of others' lives to wash through you so that you can ensure the dignity of that individual or group by not grasping onto their painful pieces too powerfully. So allowing it to wash through you, not grasping onto it too powerfully. There has to be a balance between the capacity you have to give and the load that you're asked to carry. Resilience needs to be supported by the system and not just asked for within the individual. So remember that point we were saying? It isn't enough to say and try and turn out resilient individuals. So again, just looking very, very briefly at one aspect of another study that I did with my colleagues in Trinity around barristers who work in criminal law, so barristers who, as opposed to criminal barristers, which I always get in trouble for saying. So these are, people who work day in and day out with rape cases, with child assault cases, with murder cases, some of the really grisly cases. And I was looking at it and how do they protect themselves from vicarious trauma? And again, one of the things that came up was this armoury of resilience. So obviously I'm not going to go into the whole study, but what I would like to do is just focus on this one point about the emotional Rubicon. Because one of the aspects is this issue of empathy. I mean, I don't know, is it something that it's trained here, the importance of empathy within your profession? I mean, I know it's you hear it all the time, you read it, the importance of empathy, and of course empathy is very important. But the other thing I'd like to say to you is that empathy needs to be appropriate. Because one of the ways in which vicarious trauma can manifest is by this empathic engagement or this over-empathic engagement with the individual. So while empathy is very important, it has to be an appropriate empathy. And what do I mean by that? So for example, when I was talking to these barristers through qualitative interviews and trying to understand the role of empathy within the law, now some people snigger that lawyers have empathy at all, but putting that aside, they all to a person very clearly started to almost do this and say there's a line. Yes, of course you have to be empathic. That's, you're dealing with people's tragedies. You're dealing with very, very hard and sad, very real cases, very real tragedies. But there is a line. You have to know your role. Okay, and you have to stay the right side of that line. And as they started to explain it, from a psychological point of view, it's actually the difference between cognitive empathy and affective empathy. So what do I mean by that? So cognitive empathy is understanding how difficult this is for somebody else. Understanding that that parents are sitting there whose child has been murdered or whose child has been sexually abused, or the victim of a sexual abuse or of a rape, that of course you understand the absolute tragedy that there is there, or looking at the person, the accused, who's going through something, that their family trying to support them through this, that you couldn't but have an empathic response to this. But it stops short of affective empathy, which is actually feeling what they feel. So you have a cognitive empathy in that you can understand the pain, but you don't step into their shoes. Okay? You don't have that affective empathy where you start to feel what they feel. Okay? And interestingly, one of the barristers said, actually there is a moment during a whole trial where you do, when the jury come in and they're about to deliver their verdict, and if you're defending the accused, at that precise moment, you actually feel that affective empathy. You start to feel what they feel. And I said to the barrister then, well, what do you do about that? And he said, well, if there's an acquittal and the accused is found not guilty, well, then you've such a relief, a job well done. But if they're not, and they're found guilty, you start to think of what are the grounds of appeal. So immediately your mind gets back up into the cognitive space, starting to think again like the professional. How can I help this person? What are the grounds of appeal arising out of this? And I think it's really important, as I say, it goes back to that point about needing to interrogate words, interrogate language, and not just accept them. So empathy has an incredibly important role, no more so than in the work you do. But I think it's very important to try and understand what type of empathy. So getting down to this issue, well, what supports professional well-being? I've broken it down into sort of an ABC, and maybe that's having a young daughter, and life gets more simple in some ways. But awareness, I think self-awareness is really important, isn't it? The ability to stop, reflect, what's happening, why, but also awareness for other people, okay? Looking out for your colleagues, okay? And then being able to speak up and be heard, okay? And we'll come back to that in a moment. The issue about balance, I think this is really interesting. I mean, work-life balance, that's often trotted out, isn't the importance, and it is very important, work-life balance. And I'm not here to preach you about what that is, about what self-care is, because it means very different things to different people, doesn't it? I mean, one person's pint after work is another person's round of golf, is another person's Sudoku on the bus home. But what I do think is important is that it's nurturing and not numbing. Okay, so that's what's important. And also, when I put balance, I think it's really, we all need to be responsible for looking at the balance between what we talked earlier about. It's not all about well-being equals happiness equals who do we blame when we don't feel that way at work. It's having a more balanced approach to this, which I hope is coming across in this address. Okay? And I think because it has to reflect the reality of what you've chosen to work in. But also then the balance is how you're supported in doing that. And then this issue of containment. I think that's important on two levels. One is how do you contain the work so that it doesn't spill over and doesn't come home with you and doesn't impact you. So the importance of that. But then also who contains you. And I remember again working once with a social worker, and she said to me that as a junior social worker, her manager would say to her when she was going into a difficult case conference, she'd say, imagine that I'm holding you by the ankles. You're going to be in there for 25 minutes, but just imagine I'm holding you by the ankles, and when it's over, I will pull you out. Okay? So it's really important to feel contained within the work that you do, and that's the responsibility of the support network that needs to be there for you and provided for you. So just to start to finish up in looking at, again, what supports this further, as I say, it's at a personal, professional and organisational level. Okay? Remember, as I say, it's not just turning out resilient individuals. It's a far more complex and dynamic picture that needs to be created. So we've talked about the appropriate empathy, okay? And I really do think that that's something I'd like you to think about the next time somebody talks to you about the importance or the role of empathy within your profession. What type of empathy are they talking about? How do you bound that empathy so that it is protective of you? Job satisfaction or engagement is one of the single most important protections. So when I have worked with organisations and with groups who do really, really difficult and really challenging work, and they will talk about that, and they will tell me the grisliness and the awful things, and they all have examples, and it'll all be quite upsetting to hear. And I say, well, why do you do it? They look at me like I'm mad, and they say, we love it. Wouldn't do anything else. Absolutely love it. Okay? And it's actually, from a research perspective, it is shown that job satisfaction or compassion satisfaction or work engagement, which is that feeling of being dedicated, absorbed, feeling vigour around your work, the opposite or the antipode really of burnout, that actually from a research perspective is shown to be one of the greatest protections against burnout, okay, and against something like vicarious trauma as well. That, you know, having that job satisfaction. So easier said than done, and you won't have it every day. And it's different to happiness. It's about having a level of engagement with your work that is very positive, even when it's difficult. That issue of leaving work at work, we've talked about that. I know some people, even in little tips, they say if you've had a particularly hard day at work, when you go home, before you sit down and talk to your family or go meet your friends who don't do anything in your profession, just go change out of your clothes. Like sometimes even as simple as that, you know, shed that layer. So all those sort of simple things, and you'll start to develop them for yourselves. From that professional point of view, again, the importance of training and enlivening the mind and keeping growing and moving. One of the things that's really important, this use of peer support, okay? This use of these reflective spaces, very, very important. Now, who are your peers? They shift and they change, obviously. But within a hierarchical profession, it's really important to carve out these spaces where you can sit and, you know, that they're properly, that they're honoured, that they're important spaces to sit together. Again, during your career, sometimes, you know, opportunities to step out and take on a project or do something a little bit different from the clinical work can be very enlivening. But again, the importance, you know, it's easy to say a cohesive workplace is a happy workplace and it is very good. But how is that achieved? You know, and there's, you know, the organisation have to think about that and they have to work on that, especially within hierarchical structures. So to end with, I'd just like to, I suppose, put up a quote from one of my favourite authors, Maya Angelou, who some of you may know. And I suppose while she wasn't writing this about the professionals, this is the professional I aspire, and I say aspire to be, and it's certainly the sort of colleague I'd like to work with. And I said I'll leave the last words to Maya Angelou. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that very interesting and sort of giving us something to ponder and to think about over the weekend as we prepare for our Sunday night, Monday morning. My name is Siobhan Canny and I am the Sales Group Director for Midwifery, and you're very welcome to go away, any of the visitors, and to the colleagues we know. My role here today is to introduce the debaters, and I will do so now. So, first of all, to introduce the motion. The motion is the challenges in the provision of professional care, a strength-based approach. The debaters, they include Simone Lepage from NUIG. Simone is a third year or a higher diploma student here in NUIG. Bridie Abu from Trinity College. Ellen McCarraher from Dundalk Institute of Technology. Lily O'Shea Hitchin from the University of Limerick. Clara Devine from the University College Dublin, and Erica Fenner, University College Dublin. So I will invite first Simone Lepage, who's going to be speaking pro for the motion. You're again.
So we might invite the first pro speaker today, if that's okay, please. And just the title of the motion is "This House
Believes." Oh, right, okay. This is slightly embarrassing. Because actually I was hoping to get some tips for my 2020 priorities. So that's a bit of a disappointment for me, actually. So the debate begins. This House believes that midwifery skills are being lost as technology is promoted in all stages of pregnancy, labour and birth. So we're going to welcome the first speaker pro for the motion.
This House believes that midwifery skills are being lost as technology is being promoted in all stages of pregnancy, labour and birth. However, we believe the current emerging model of maternity care has been influenced by an ever-increasing reliance on elaborated technologies. Technologic interventions are now being used more routinely rather than being confined to the care of women with particular medical risk. This creates an idea of an obstetric norm, and page 2019 suggests that this not only decreases the midwife's skills but also depersonalises and dehumanises maternity care, ultimately causing midwives to lose sight of and prevents the utilisation of their midwifery skills. I will be arguing how this motion affects antenatal care. Historically, first trimester scans were only routinely offered to women unsure of their last menstrual period. However, current maternity services now rely on ultrasound scans to confirm expected due dates. The midwife's knowledge and skills of calculating estimated due dates with information about the woman's cycle and her last menstrual period are being lost as a result of this. It could be argued that we are not only devaluing our own skills and losing confidence in our ability to calculate EDDs, but also diminishing women's agency of knowing their own bodies. Fisher 2006 stated that routine ultrasound scans in early pregnancy can cause a change of feeling of anticipated and a pleasurable event into a stressful pregnancy when a mother is introduced to the idea that she is at risk. This emphasis on inherent risk reduces the midwife's skills of promoting a normal biopsychosocial process and in turn creates a more medicalised philosophy. Ultrasound scanning is also routinely used to estimate fetal weight, although Banerjee et al. 2008 argued that clinical assessment of estimated fetal weight can often be as accurate as ultrasound scans. Could it be that we are becoming a generation of practitioners who are becoming increasingly reliant on ultrasounds within our practice? Since the introduction of the GROW assessment protocol in Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital Drogheda, which is a customised fetal growth surveillance chart, there's been a decrease in perinatal mortality alongside a reduction of the number of stillbirths as a result of monitored fetal growth abnormalities. Nonetheless, in order to detect these abnormalities of fetal growth, the midwife must rely on her skills of abdominal palpation and measurement of funnel height in order to plot data on these customised growth charts. If these vital skills are not being maintained as a result of using technology to estimate fetal growth, we as midwives are at risk of losing them. Antenatal appointments generally involve the use of technological equipment to assess the health and well-being of both the mother and the fetus. We use electronic equipment to visualise the maternal heart rate and blood pressure. This is taking the place of our own skills of manual observation. What will happen in situations where this equipment is not available? A further reduction in our skills of observation can be lost by our focus of technology and its findings. This results in a lack of attention to straightforward visual observations such as a woman's general appearance, which can provide plentiful information. This closely links with Minaj et al. 2016, who illustrated the importance of maintaining our skills of recognition. However, this can only happen if we as midwives are authentically and actively present, not when all our focus is on the technology in the room. Moreover, our assessment of fetal well-being at antenatal appointments usually involves the use of a handheld Doppler to measure fetal heart rate. This avoidance of the use of the Pinard can not only result in the confusion between maternal and fetal heart rate, but also depletes our learned and practice skill on use of the Pinard. Ultimately, we are arguing that in this age we use machines and technology to undertake tasks that we used to do ourselves. This reduction of practicing these skills hinders our abilities to perform these tasks in the future. To conclude, we believe that as midwives we must see the increased use of technology as a servant rather than a master. Selective use of technology equals more individualised care, increases the personalisation of each woman's experience, and diminishes a one-size-fits-all approach to maternity care.
Thank you. The first speaker against the motion. It's okay. We have
quite a height difference. So just Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, Madam Chairperson. We, the opposing team, believe that the motion that midwifery skills are being lost as technology is promoted in all stages of pregnancy, labor, and birth is false. My team today consists of Clara from UCD and Erica from UCD. I myself, Simone, will tell you today about how technology actually is not to blame at all for any loss of midwifery skills. Clara is going to demonstrate to you that through education and professional development, technology is improving our skills. And Erica will show you that technology is the key to improving midwifery skills on a global scale. I'm going to focus my argument on two areas today: the institution and our lack of confidence and competence in technology. So, these are not, our loss of midwifery skills is not due to technology. It is in fact due to the institution. Let's take that first, all right? Well, we have notable exceptions. Sorry. Irish maternity services, mainly, including most births, occur in acute hospital settings. Our 2016 midwifery maternity strategy made women-centered care one of our major goals. These institutions, however, do provide a standard set of care for all women. This one-size-fits-all standard of care is increasingly risk-averse, and it happens in increasingly technical environments. This goal in these environments is to control risk, but what we know, the research tells us, is that a midwife, when they are confident, is able to accept and embrace uncertainty around childbirth. And when we can embrace uncertainty around childbirth, we can promote normality, and we can use the skills that we have. So we have the institution that's trying to control risk, and we have the midwife that is trying to embrace uncertainty. We are opposing each other. This is keeping our skills possibly at a minimum. And we know from two groups of researchers, Black and Schauer in 2008 and Page and Mander in 2014, they independently found that as a researcher or as a midwife has increased confidence in their skills, their reliance on technology is decreased. So midwives gain confidence and they become, resilient when they are supported by their colleagues and their environment to embrace this uncertainty in childbirth. So let us be empowered to detach from the institution that perceives childbirth as risky and instead build each other's confidence and experience so that we can rely less on technologies and increase our skill base. Our second enemy is lack of confidence and competence in birth technologies. Midwives are concerned with their lack of ability, support, and competence in the birth technologies that we are faced with every day. Sinclair and Gardner pointed this out as early as 2001, and researchers are still trying to facilitate and improve our competencies using birth technologies today. Lacking self-assuredness and ability puts the technology at the center of a midwife's attention, when in fact we need to be looking at the woman and their family. Sinclair and Gardner point out wonderfully that technology becomes invisible when the user is an expert. But if we are not experts in using our technology, we lose skill. So I propose that we combine the art of midwifery skill and technology to give us the best of both worlds. How many of you here have cell phones with you today? My family is watching from the States right now. Hi. So we all embrace technology. We can use it to enhance our midwifery skills. And I'm going to leave you with one last thought from Margaret MacDonald, a medical anthropologist looking at the evolution of midwifery. When women invite technology to be an aspect of female embodiment, they become responsible for it and not dominated by it. As midwives, it is our gift to be able to become responsible for technology, to use it to the benefit of our skills and not be dominated by it. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'd like to introduce our second speech pro the motion.
We might just ask the speakers to introduce themselves.
Grand, sorry, I just haven't started yet. I'm just seeing where to start. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Bridie. I'm representing Trinity today to propose the motion. So in my speech, I will be addressing how the motion affects the intrapartum stage of labour and birth, so the intrapartum stage of pregnancy. So midwifery skills are centred on protecting and promoting normal birth with minimal intervention. The overuse and abuse of technology results in midwifery skills being lost. This is due to the biomedical model, which is currently interfering with midwifery skills as it is the dominant paradigm. The definition of a midwife is to be with women and support them through all stages of labour, pregnancy and birth. Midwives should promote normality and aim to reduce intervention during all stages of pregnancy. Currently, the Irish maternity care system is widely based on a technocratic model. This is due to fear of litigation, shortage of staff, and the widespread use of the biomedical model of care. These factors result in midwifery skills being lost as an emphasis is placed on the use of technology. The Irish maternity care system aims to base the care provided to women on the best available guidelines and practices. For instance, a woman who is healthy and has no pre-existing conditions should have intermittent auscultation during the first and second stage of labour. However, what is currently seen in many of the maternity units around the country is continuous monitoring of the fetus. This is because it is believed, due to the biomedical model, that this is a safer practice and more convenient, again, due to the shortage of staff. This deprives women of adequate midwifery care as she does not have the opportunity to stay mobile, engage with her midwife, and adopt the recommended positions for the best maternal and fetal outcomes. This again is how technology is taking away from the skills the midwife can use to help her women promote normality. Technology creates a barrier between the midwife and the woman. Technology also disconnects the woman from her baby as the focus is instantly placed on the monitors around the woman. The misuse of technology only makes the midwifery skills of being with women obsolete. It denies women choice of having a safe, normal and non-interventional birth. In addition to this, the dominant paradigm of technology is becoming more prominent and allows obstetrics to take over midwifery. The paradigm results in midwives being obstetric nurses due to an over-reliance of technology. As Simone said, we should become experts in using our technology so we can become comfortable in our skills when it comes to technology. However, midwives are experts in their own right, and we should be able to recognise the normal without having technology around us. Technology should only be used when the normal has not occurred and intervention needs to occur. This is an obstetric role and not a midwifery role, therefore intervening again with our skills. This only reminds me of the words of Wagner, a previous director of midwifery and child welfare for the World Health Organization. He stated that the Irish maternity services is obstetric-led and midwife-managed. This implies that we are simply the handmaidens to obstetrics. Is this really where we want to be as midwives? Needless to say, the fault is not to be fully placed on midwives. From the moment we enter college, in lectures we're told countless stories of litigation and fears of being sued. When we enter practice, the focus is on guidelines and policies. These policies are based again on the fear of litigation and also created by people who are higher up and want to push their own agenda, i.e. the obstetricians, which is where the money is and which is where they believe they can benefit from. This is not putting women at the centre of their care. This is not focusing on what women want and need. This is taking away from the choice women deserve. It is staggering to think that the average rate of caesarean section in Ireland is 35%, and even higher in St Luke's Hospital in Kilkenny, with a rate of nearly 50%, as quoted by Cuidiú. This is completely inappropriate. As recommended by the World Health Organization, the rate of caesarean section should be 10 to 15%. Now, you may wonder, how does this link in with technology? But this is because the focus again is brought back to obstetricians who rely on technology, who are taking away from the roles of the midwives. In a special edition of the Lancet Journal 2014, which is a renowned evidence-based peer-reviewed journal, it concluded that the optimal intervention for promoting safe and quality maternity service is midwifery-led care. Midwifery has been described as both a science and an art. It is time we brought the art back into midwifery. As Mary Robinson once said, it is time we rewrote women back into history. I'm sure the opposition would agree that it is also time we rewrote midwives back into the Irish maternity services. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome the second speaker against the motion to the podium.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, distinguished guests and fellow debaters. My name is Clara Devine and I will be discussing how technology can be used to improve our midwifery skills, both within practice and education. It is a requirement of the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland that midwives maintain and advance their professional development throughout their careers. Technology can be used to augment this advancement. Additionally, earlier this year, the World Health Organization outlined the importance of embracing innovative technology in order to ensure quality midwifery education globally. This can be done through the use of mobile phone applications, simulations, and videos, where these will be discussed throughout this debate. It cannot be denied that our lives have become dependent upon smartphones. In fact, in 2018, Deloitte reported that 93% of all Irish consumers either own or have access to smartphones, where we check these phones approximately 55 times a day. As these phones are so integral within our lives, why not exploit their wide-scale accessibility to improve our midwifery skills? For example, Haffey et al. In 2014 identified a total of 360 mobile phone applications to aid medication management and prescribing. Having information about medications available within seconds at the tap of a screen can allow midwives to adhere to their professional development standard to maintain their knowledge and skills regarding medication management. With pregnant women now presenting with more complex medical conditions and medications accompanying these conditions, a need for such applications is more relevant today than ever. In an Irish survey conducted by Redmond et al. In 2018, nursing and midwifery students identified clinical skills laboratories as the greatest enablers to learning. Technology can be used to improve these skills labs, optimizing simulations conducted within them. Chikongo and Southers reported earlier this year that the use of computerized mannequins programmed to display medical signs and symptoms and interact with students have the ability to make a more realistic simulation environment and improve skill development therefore. These mannequins aid integration of not only communication skills, but also decision-making and practical skills within a realistic and safe environment with a responsive patient. Additionally, Chikongo explains her use of augmented reality headsets within clinical skills labs. These allow students to virtually place themselves inside a maternal pelvis and get a better grasp of its anatomy. This allows improved understanding of obstetric emergencies such as shoulder dystocias and provides improved confidence for the students to display these skills when these occur within placement. Although simulations are advantageous, they're hindered by their once-off nature. The use of reusable learning opportunities have provided an effective platform within midwifery for additional learning and reflection. Power and Cole reported in 2017 that recording midwives' performing skills, such as abdominal palpations, suturings, and postnatal examinations within clinical labs, will significantly improve the quality of our midwifery practice. Through repeatedly watching these reusable learning opportunities, students can watch a correct demonstration of a skill which will then allow for better knowledge retention as well as skill development. Additionally, most qualified midwives and students can use videos of themselves performing skills for revision and reflection before entering the clinical area. Therefore, in conclusion, to the above points, a compelling argument for the use of technology to augment midwifery skills and knowledge development is expressed. Although there is a common fear that our skills are being lost to excessive reliance on technology, its avoidance entirely can cause stagnation in midwifery knowledge and skills development and is detrimental to the possible peak standard of midwifery practice that could be achieved. As my colleague said, we must use the right technology for the right reason at the right time. Thank you.
So we'll have the third speaker again for the motion.
So hello everyone, my name is Lily and I'm arguing for the motion that we are losing midwifery skills as technology is promoted in all stages of pregnancy. As a student, I go on placement and hope to practice and perfect my clinical skills, but when technology is involved, I rarely get to do this. It is disheartening as a student to be taught how to protect normal and to promote normal, but we see midwives constantly deferring to technology and obstetricians. These are two things that do not deal with normal. The MidU study has told us that we are at a crossroads. We can listen to the research that reports greater satisfaction rates, cost-effective care and safe care for low-risk women when that care is midwifery-led. Or we can have women on the flat of their backs subjected to constant surveillance and constant monitoring in high-tech settings, where the machine replaces the midwife and we do not get to use our intuitive midwifery skills. The best of traditional midwifery needs to be practiced with evidence-based guidelines. This does not always equal the use of technology. We need strong midwifery leaders who know the importance of midwifery as a profession and value our skills. We can all agree that technology can be life-saving when used appropriately, but not all women need technology. Every woman needs a midwife, not a monitor. Have we become so used as a profession to deferring to technology that we no longer value our own skills or have the confidence to stand up to fight to use them? Have we lost all confidence in ourselves, confidence in our hands-on skills, that we can no longer stand up and fight for our profession and fight for the women that we care for, who are subjected to cascades of intervention because of the inappropriate and overuse of technology? Where a machine will never be able to replace the intuitive and guarding relationship that develops between a woman and her midwife. We need to reevaluate our care. Are we demonstrating poor practice by not fighting for a change? Our maternity strategy, although trying to reevaluate the care we give, still focuses on words that promote the use of technology and promote this notion of risk, such as words like failure and monitor. We need to listen to women. The brave women that spoke out on the Joe Duffy show should be acknowledged. And we could not have got a clearer sign that things need to change in our maternity system. The MAI brought out a press release post this Joe Duffy interview to show midwives' solidarity with these women and our own pain and our own trauma at working in a system that does not value us. We need to give women back their confidence in their ability to birth, their choice and their autonomy. We need to restore their faith in midwifery and stop introducing them to this notion of risk. But how can we give women confidence when we have none of our own? We as midwives need to regain our confidence in our skills. We no longer need to justify not using technology or fear the repercussions of not doing so. We as midwives are supposed to promote normal and protect normal and be the guardians of normal, but the way that we work today is not normal. Technology removes the nowness and human dimensions of childbirth and pregnancy. Technology cannot adapt from woman to woman. A pregnant woman should certainly not be expected to adapt. But a midwife can adapt. Our heads, our hearts, and our hands can adapt from woman to woman, and we have not used our skills for generations for it to be drowned out and replaced by the constant beep of a CTG machine. In conclusion, myself, Ellen, and Bridie are arguing that midwifery as a profession and our skills are at risk of becoming extinct as technology is promoted. We are losing our ability to develop relationships with women because of technology. The vision of the future of midwifery is in the hands of midwives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll have the third speaker against the motion.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, distinguished guests and fellow speakers. My name is Erica Fenner and I'm pleased to be here today with my colleagues Simone and Clara to discuss how midwifery skills are not being lost as a result of technology, but are in fact being improved, supported and enhanced. I will speak about global connections, social media and e-learning opportunities. As technology brings our world closer together by linking individuals from every country in the world, connections are being made that never would have been made without technology. Global engagement and technological advances can only benefit women, babies and midwives all over the world. It is especially important in corners of the globe that midwives are in short supply or there is a need to educate midwives in remote locations. Haryamana et al. In 2016 discussed the benefits of e-learning in nursing and midwifery education. They found that e-learning was a student-centred approach and the ability to access blended learning fast-tracked the production of an educated and skilled workforce. The technological developments allowing for online data access have vastly improved in the last 20 years. Many here today may remember the days that midwifery students had to be tethered to the library to carry out the most rudimentary of literature searches. Nowadays, access to a wealth of up-to-date, cutting-edge data is available instantly via online databases and data repositories. The recent move towards open access peer-reviewed publications has meant for wider dissemination of knowledge and skills to every corner of the globe. Better access to a range of up-to-date evidence-based information means that the skills that midwives are using are supported by an excellent standard of knowledge that they have accessed thanks to technology. Standard 5 of the NMBI practice standards for midwives centres around collaboration with others. It is undeniable that communication and collaboration is the most fundamental midwifery skill. Social media is a valuable tool in modern day communication, as you all know. The NMBI guidance on social media, which was published in 2013, recognised that social media plays a role in continuous professional development, online learning and access to research. Evidence-based practice and staying up to date with the newest research is indeed a midwifery skill. Social media platforms, especially Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, are very useful for midwives to keep up to date with knowledge, but as well as that, they can be used for social engagement with like-minded midwives all over the world. Social media can not only be helpful in connecting midwives with other healthcare professionals, but they can be used to support the interpersonal skills that are so necessary for a midwife. The Maternity Direct Plus project was carried out by Tranter and McGraw in 2017 in the UK. They set up a Facebook group where women could ask midwives questions preconceptionally whilst they were pregnant and up to 28 days postnatally. They concluded that social media could have a very real role in communication between women and their midwives, and that social media can complement the existing channels of communication that we use at the moment. Midwives will still need to know the information to give women. They need to know how to interpret the data and how to present the data to women. However, social media is merely a tool in ensuring that good evidence-based advice is accessible to women. The past decade has seen the development of massive open online courses, or MOOCs, which allow for free, unlimited, multi-user access. Examples include 2015's MOOC for Midwives, Evidence-Based Midwifery Practice, which was facilitated by midwifery experts across the globe. More recently, the MAMI study team have published an online resource about postpartum health that can be accessed by midwives and women alike. This MOOC supports one of the most fundamental skills that is required by a midwife, and that is to give evidence-based, accessible, and relevant information to women and their families. The Mammy Online Learning Package gives us the opportunities to support the information that we're giving to women postpartum. This is an exciting time for our profession, as technology provides us with the unique opportunity to enhance our skills and promote the core values of midwifery through global connections, social media and e-learning resources. As society moves forward and enjoys what technology brings to the table, we owe it to our profession, and more importantly to the women and babies that we care for, that we are using the right technology at the right time and for the right reason. Thank you.
Thank you. So now each team has an opportunity to rebut, and there'll be 3 minutes for each team to do that. So we'll just take a minute just to have a breath and think about the final thoughts. Soon enough now. Yeah, sure, take a minute. Yeah, but take a minute. A minute is okay, I think. A minute, I'm looking to the timekeeper. She has 30 seconds on the clock. So final thoughts on paper, and I'd like to invite the pro team to give their rebuttal. So thank you for that. Okay, great.
Okay, that's harder than the actual debate. Okay, so thank you both teams. It was a very good debate. So just to start off, so Simone, so you said that the standard of care, if we look more towards technology, then that can improve our standard of care. However, if we are creating a standard of care, that's creating a generalisation, and we know that we can't generalise when it comes to maternity care, because if you even look at, for instance, Caucasian women versus African women, even the shape of their pelvis, majority overall, it tends to be different from that of Caucasian women. So how is it fair to create a standard of care which is basically not individualising care? So that's already taking away from the skills of midwifery. Midwives don't need to rely on technology. The institution relies on technology. Midwives should be independent but together. We should use our skills together, but understand, again, how to create individualised care and not, again, feed into the biomedical model, as unfortunately your team has been doing. So technology is not something, as I said in my speech, that we need to become an expert in. We need to become experts in our midwifery skills. And Clara, you said in your speech that it's really good that we have simulations and mannequins. And I don't know about you, but anybody who's taken blood on a mannequin, I'm telling you now, it's not the same as a real person. So I don't really know how that's going to work the same. And palpations on a real woman versus on a mannequin, again, is not the same. We don't need virtual reality does have its place when it comes to looking at what it's going to be like in the clinical setting, but we all know a shoulder dystocia on a mannequin is very different to a shoulder dystocia in real setting, for instance. And again, that's more feeding into obstetric care and not necessarily midwifery care, so you've fallen into your trap again. And then the last thing for Erica is necessarily not everybody has advantage to mobile phones and social media. The opposition seems to have forgotten about the developing world, and not even necessarily the developing world. There are people in Ireland, for instance, who are very disadvantaged and won't have the money to pay for internet or to even have a mobile phone to reach all this information that you're claiming is out there. It is out there, but it's not out there for everyone, although you may think it is. If it's not accessible, it's not for everyone. And also, the information that you may find is not always reliable. We hear of these stories of women coming in saying, oh, my friend told me this, but we're like, no, That's the wrong evidence. We don't do that anymore. So we shouldn't be recommending that people go off and rely on the technology that's out there. It has its place, but it's not the place we should be. Thank you.
Not always easy to go first in the rebuttal. Thank you. So now we'd just like to welcome the opposing team for their rebuttal.
So, again, my name is Simone Lepage. I'm representing NUIG. And, in fact, I'm representing the fact that technology can work for us. This dichotomy of medicalization and the holistic, candle-lit midwife is a beautiful, nostalgic idea, and it no longer exists. Okay, the nurturing, benign midwife, we are giving away our power with that idea. Why can we not take authority of technology? I will not use technology for everything. My hands are the best way to decide where a baby is. But sometimes I need a pinard. Piece of technology, by the way. Okay? So we don't need to be in this dichotomy. We don't need to give away the masculine obstetric and be the feminine midwife. We can own both of these worlds. Our theory education gap. I agree that taking blood from a mannequin is not a good idea. But guess what? The rural world is benefiting from technology. The World Health Organization is on board with using technology for the first time this year, 2019. They came out with a statement about using technology to take stock in medical and maternity supplies in rural parts of the world. Vietnam is showing in their ethnic minorities for the first time a 40% increase in engagement of women who before previously were not engaging with the maternity health carers via mobile apps. 93% of the women that they are looking at in rural parts of the world are engaging with mobile apps. They are engaging with their healthcare providers, they are visiting, they are seeing postpartum checks that they never did before. This is reaching midwives, this is reaching women in ways that we never had before. And I would like to take a minute just to talk about hands-on and CTG and the machine being a person. It is being anthropomorphized. We don't have to put on a CTG. Our policies don't tell us to do it with low-risk women. It is the midwife who's making that decision. And when was the last time you heard a midwife tell a woman, a low-risk woman, that the putting on a CTG was increasing her chance of a cesarean section by 20%? It is not the technology's fault. It is my fault, my culture, our training. What we have to do is support each other, to remind each other that we have skills, but we live in a modern world, and those skills can be upheld by the technologies that are around us.
So thank you for that rebuttal. So I'd like to invite Dawn Johnson, the Director of Midwifery for the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland, up to rebut to the panel. Okay.
I'm going to start with distinguished speakers, distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, and your fellow students. What do I say? This is really, each year I just see a higher and higher reflection of the debating, the ability for our student midwives to tackle most difficult, contentious issues that we face in our working life. And I think, fair to say, our government and Oireachtas committee need to look out. You're on their way. And And, you know, it's been a very healthy and convincing debate. And, you know, for you starting your journey, you have demonstrated, all of you, you are no pushovers. And I suppose it's, you know, what I've also heard today is you've really demonstrated your determination and passion. And, you know, and it's all about the women and the care and that they get the best care. For those of us who have been in the job a little while, I think we can be very confident. There is a strong midwives in the making now, ready to take up the mantle. I just want to say a couple of things, you know, is that I know that our speakers have been really encouraged by their fellow colleagues, fellow students, and many of you are here today, so thank you very much for coming down, and, you know, well done, because I know that the other people that I know have provided a lot of support. I think I was included in one email erroneously. But midwifery educationalists, and you have been there to support them, not just for this debate. You do a splendid job with the coaching, and, you know, when I see, you know, the midwifery educationists, when I go on site visits, what I do see is they are so determined to give you all the best, and only the best, and for you to develop to your fullest potential. And I often think that they are a bit forgotten in the university, and I would like to thank them all for the work that they do for our student midwives today, and there are many of you here. Also supporting our students are the midwives in clinical practice, and they take much responsibility for the experience that they gain, that our students gain. And that was particularly noticeable in a confident manner that they spoke today. I would like to do a particular shout out to CPCs. And again, I often feel you are the unsung heroes, because sometimes, you know, there's some students who need a bit more time or a bit more encouragement and whatnot, and there's some students that are flying, and it is often very easy, but there are times when you know, there can be difficult discussions, and you always handle it very well. You know, and then just looking at Ireland, you know, Ireland has a lot to look forward to in maternity services. We have this maternity strategy, which is gaining traction. You know, with the Women's and Infants Programme, you know, bereavement standards are in place. More and more, you know, this morning we're out, there's more and more community care. I think I heard 47% this morning in where we were of the population that use maternity services are actually having their care out of the community by the midwife. The right, you know, women being seen, all around the women, being seen in the right place at the right time by the right person. And that's really important. And, you know, so for those who, you know, are responsible for the operation of the services, you know, well done. But I think that demonstrates is that Ireland is in such a good place going forward. And so for you student midwives, there really are good opportunities pending here. Never before has Ireland seen these opportunities for midwives. You know, that are coming up. And you have affirmed that you are up for the challenge, and it is a challenge. You know, we heard it from Jenny earlier on about the you know, about the challenge. So we'd want you that when you consolidate your training, that you stay here in Ireland. You know, we do require midwives that are, you know, there to speak up for the women, to work autonomously and to provide the evidence-based practice. And I heard wonderful evidence today. And I think that that's the other thing to mention, is that Ireland and Galway, where we are, you know, there is leading edge midwifery research coming out of Ireland, international research. Yeah, let's keep that going. And you know, and if I move on, next year is an important year for the profession, you know, from NMBI, and it's important for nursing and midwifery next year. We are going to update our, I'm sure you know this guideline inside out. We read it every night and whatnot. But this is going to be updated in light of new legislation. And we do need your input in this. And what I would ask you to do today, if you haven't already done it, please can you go onto the NMBI website and please subscribe to our e-zine. On that e-zine, you will get information about when we are going out for public consultation. Now, public consultation is public consultation. And that's a way of letting you know, and I'm telling you how we can let you can be informed. And it really is important that we do hear what we heard today. We need to hear it. If we don't hear it, we cannot provide good, standard or code that is fit for purpose or at the right standard. So we need that. This is for nurses and midwives, and it's really important that we are collective on this. There is nothing that doesn't apply in this, to midwifery and in nursing. And as we're finishing this, we will be starting off updating our practice standards for midwives. And again, there will be public consultation on that. So please do log on, and I will be keeping an eye. I'll be asking for an update on records of new joiners to the e-zine in the next month. Just to also say that next year is also the WHO Year of the Nurse and the Midwife. I'd also like to advise you about, it's called Nursing Now. It does include midwives, and it's a campaign that is dealing with the contribution of nurses and midwives to civic society. And there is a lot of events going on, and there is a website for that as well. And you're welcome to contact me directly on that, because I'm on the group that is working that, and like Denise, I'm the only midwife I think on the group, or no, two midwives, and that's actually fine, because in a way it is asking, I have a responsibility to demonstrate, about midwifery, not best, not a competition. It is, we are a distinct profession. Galway, you have been most hospitable, but I'll come to that at the very end. But what I would like to say about Galway, it is good to be here, but there are 3 midwives I'd like to mention who are starting a new chapter in their life, or have already started a new chapter in their life, but have contributed significantly to midwifery. Deirdre van der Putten was in practice here. She was in clinical practice here, and then she came into the education. She's recently retired. It provided great support to the students. What I particularly noticed is that she never lost sight of the clinical area. So thank you to Deirdre. Sally Miller, she was a huge contributor to the midwifery committee at NMBI over the years, when she was a self-employed midwife, but also when she has worked here. But she is also very instrumental in setting up this debate. She is a strong advocate, and I know she would have been here. I understand she's walking the hills somewhere, but I know she would have been here. And a good debate is something that she likes, and I think that that's what's really good. It's because of the likes of Sally that we have this event. And she's a very strong advocate for the profession, and she passes this on to her students. She sets high standards. She was always there for service users and their needs only, and that really came first. Margaret Coohill. Look, I understand you have decided to start the next chapter in your life, and I do hope that this still will include midwifery. You have tirelessly worked to ensure that the student gets the best and the best opportunities, the best policies, the best guidelines, the best clinical teaching. You have expected very high standards, and you have been extremely fair. You have been most committed. You have been most patient. But you are most generous sharing your knowledge. NMBI has a lot to thank you for. You are an active contributor to the midwifery practice standards, and your name is written across this, and you are involved in this. I'm not going to say goodbye, because I do see you continuing in some form or other. But honestly, well done, and thank you very much for all that you've done for midwifery. So before I ask the judges to retire, and I think we'll thank them now in case, we're here. But, they've all taken days out of their diary to come here. I am grateful for them. I'm also very grateful for Racine Cassidy, our president. She does an awful lot of this work in her own time as well, and always supports midwifery, and I'm grateful that she is here to give the prizes. But I'm going to end with you, students, right? This is about you, right? We wish you well in your studies. We look forward to you joining our profession. And most important, we look forward to you challenging us. And we thank you for the work that you've put in for today. Thank you.
So the judges are going to retire for about 10-15 minutes, and Magda is going to lead you on your way. Tara and colleagues, just up the stairs here.
This is where you break the news that I'm going to film.
Yeah. And Asine
they told me I had nothing to do today.
Asine has a poem she'd like to know. So we have a really awkward lull in the proceedings now, and I promise we're not going to talk about Margaret Cool during this.
Might I just jump right in there and say, if you want to chat amongst yourselves for a minute or two, or perhaps if anyone wants to repower up their phone and maybe hit Twitter a little bit, get the message out about today's debate, just give me a moment. I have a few little jingle bells here that I need to set up, and then we'll actively fill while we wait for the judges to come back in. Thank you.
I won't say anything in front of the
Whip it in the group chat there. Yeah, it's done. Yeah. Or we could get it yours and you can send. Yeah. That's the slide down. Put this up high. That work? Perfect. So this is just water.
It's just it looks like compost. We're going to take a picture of 6 students now, you get them together. And then the president just wants to present the certificates. Okay?
Might not want to record this.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Or do you want them on the seat? Do you want them on the seats? Do you want them seated? No, standing there? Yeah. Oh, you want me? Honoring them for the day.
If you come forward, so you kind of come around in front of the podium here.
Oh, okay.
Can I get the team so that one team wants to go in the middle? Is that it?
have everyone's attention? This is where I probably need a bell. Okay, so you're all very welcome back, and hopefully the Twitter space is alive. My name is Asim Cassidy, and I'm president of the Nursing and Midwifery Board, and I am delighted to be here again this year as an honorary midwife to listen and hear and participate in this really exciting event. I would like to just say a little bit, first of all, a little bit about myself. Most people will know I'm not a midwife. However, my background is paediatrics and public health nursing. And I suppose when I think about things, in the early part of my career, I had the privilege of working very closely alongside my midwifery colleagues, both in the acute settings, both within the Dublin area and then more in later years in the provincial setting. And sometimes it was seat of the pants kind of things when we were trying to get really ill infants to Dublin or wherever, or going on flying squads to bring them back and recover them back. So I've had a long period of time interacting with midwives. More recently then, in a role as public health nurse, Dawn has made reference to it, and I am ad-libbing now, as you will see, so this will go on for a while. Dawn has made reference to the fact that the future of healthcare in Ireland is changing, as we all know. We know that with Sláinte Care, everything is moving to the community base, but separately to that, we have the implementation of the midwifery strategy. And from a public health perspective, again, we dovetail very closely with our midwifery colleagues, both from the acute setting and those that are providing care within the home setting or the Domino service. So it is a great tradition, and there is a great tradition of collegiality and working together particularly between public health and midwifery. I would like to say a word for Declan, for Prof. Devan, should I say. Where are you gone now? There you are. He's up there. He's a little bit shy, isn't he? He won't stand into any of the photographs for us. But anyway, I would like to start by saying, I know Dawn has mentioned it, as has Denise, but I have to say, Prof. Devan, thank you so much for such a welcome and for putting this event on. And I think we should all give him a round of applause. And the team in Galway. These are for him. Oh, these are for him. You didn't give me that first. Declan, now you've no choice but to come down.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wonder, is that the first bouquet of flowers you've ever gotten? But I suppose, look, I'm absolutely blown away by the reception we've had here today. I think everyone will agree that the spread and everything that has been put on the facilities are phenomenal here in University Galway. So thank you again. I have my fingers crossed that my car's not clamped when I go out. But I'm sure every one of you will give me a hand to alleviate that as I leave. The other piece that I would like to say as well, and I know, thank you to the speakers, I want to acknowledge the work of Dawn Johnson and Denise Lawler as committee chair, and their vision and passion for the role of midwifery and the direction of midwifery. This debate is their baby, for want of a better word. You know, they drive it through every year and they bring it through. And each year, Dawn, you're right, every year it is building. And it is, from the board's perspective, it is fantastic to be able to come out to the provinces and to actually bring the debate around the country. So I'm waiting with bated breath to see where we might be going next year. I don't know yet. Oh, please tell me we're going to the data.
So we've now been round the country. We've come out of Dublin. We were in
Dundalk,
Limerick, Galway. Cork have said they'll do next year.
Okay.
And then we're back to Dublin.
So, I think, Declan, you've set the bar very high this year. So our colleagues in Cork, I suppose preparation begins now. It's interesting, I was listening to Ryan Tubridy on the radio on the way down this morning. I know there's a small little event happening tonight on TV. And somebody did ask him the question, when does he start planning for next year's show? And he literally said, when this year's show finishes, about an hour later in the green room. So no pressure, but Cork, we look forward to visiting you and look forward to see what the debate topic will be next year as well. I suppose I have a few formalities to deliver. I'm on the agenda to present the certificates and a small gift to the speakers. So I think while we wait for the judging panel to come back in, it might be an opportune moment to do that. I have them here. We're sorted. I have forewarned our excellent students that I am going to make the 7 shows of them, so there's no point in saying any other way. But I think it would be really nice that we bring them up, acknowledge, and then we'll have them sit here so you can all actually see them together as teams, okay? So, right, let me see, where am I? So I'm in no particular order, I'm just going to go in the order that I have here. So first of all, could I have Lily O'Shea, please? And apologies, thank you. I need a wingman. Oh. Small gift.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Bridie. In your respective teams. Clara. Simone. And I suppose we do need to say a shout out to Simone's family in the States. Happy Thanksgiving for yesterday.
Exactly.
And I hope they're enjoying Black Friday today.
Listen to me practice at Thanksgiving meal. So.
Ellen. Not easy to go first. And finally, Erica.
Could I just say a particular thanks to Erica? Unfortunately, Cork couldn't provide a student at the last minute for various reasons. And Erica, at 5, and I'm saying this without the judges here because, you know, want to be fair, and Erica stepped stepped in at, you know, a week's notice. And honestly,
4
well
days.
done.
Okay, so that presents our teams and our students, and I think Dawn has already made reference to this, that I think we can all feel very confident that the future of midwifery is in very safe hands when we look at the passion and the energy that each and every one of the ladies today have displayed. I suppose a final thank you. How am I doing for the fill-in, Declan? Am I getting it? Okay. We'll be singing yet. I suppose a final word of thanks to, as I said, NUI Galway, to Trinity College, to Dundalk Institute of Technology, to University of Limerick and to UCD. That it is a testament to each and every one of the institutions, the quality and the calibre of students and of young midwives that you are turning out, and that is very obvious today, so thank you again. Okay, I suppose at that point, I'll open it to the floor. If anyone has any questions for our students, please work away. Or maybe some comments. Anybody? Angela, I'm sure you have something to say. For the students? I can indeed. Do you want me to run up with it now?
For me today to hear the pros and cons of technology and the skills of midwives, it's really, really important to hear your opinion, because there is some discussion around how we can best use technology going forward. So I'm delighted to hear, and also with regard to the strategy, I think it's vital. You're coming into your first year as being staff midwives, and there's a lot of changes happening on the ground. The strategy has really gained great momentum. We have directors of midwifery now in the 19 maternity units, and some of them are here today, and they have done powerful work over the last 2 years and continue to do the same. We're also going to drive AMPs, so the career pathways for midwives going forward will also give you great opportunities going forward. So you really are coming in at the right time, and I wish you the very, very best in your careers.
Hello, I'm Sheila from Castlebar, and I just want to thank you all, because I know it didn't happen without a lot of work and effort, and I'm so proud to see young midwives like that today. It's great. Thank you very much. Very much.
Sorry, Siobhan Kenny here. I would just like to... No, I don't really need it. But I just wanted to thank you for stimulating a conversation in my own head about my midwifery and how I should aim to practice and aspire to practice. And I think that there is a tug between technology and skill, and whatever the judges say, I think that it is just something that's it's worth considering in practice, and it is always worth critiquing and re-evaluating practice, because ultimately that's the only way that we're going to drive and sustain high quality, well delivered care for the mums and babies that trust us with our hands, our skills, and whatever kit we have in the bag.
I'd just like to congratulate you, our future midwives. I'm Mary Frances O'Reilly, and I'm the Director of Nursing and Midwifery Planning and Development Unit here in the Midwest. And I also support the development from a national perspective of the advanced midwifery and nursing roles. I think I'm coming to the end of my career, but I'm certainly so... I'm lost for words actually in the context of what the future for midwifery, as we're speaking of midwifery today, holds. And you know, the care of women, children and our families is just in such good hands from what I've witnessed here this afternoon. So a huge congratulations to all of you, to your partners in education and to your partners in clinical practice, and to the women and families that you care for. The world is your oyster, so really look forward to a very, very bright future.
Thank you. And my name is Barbara. I did ask her to come down and shake her head frantically at me. So maybe if everyone says, thanks, a clap, Margaret might come down. Come on.
All I can say is wow, 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 wow. You were brilliant, and I'm so proud to be associated with that. We are the clinicians that hopefully started off with you and nurtured you through all your years as a student. I always feel, and I always say this, that without the students in this country, we would have no healthcare. So I hope that the continued support that you get from clinical, academic personnel will continue throughout from now and ongoing. And sorry, now I'm lost for words, but I wish to thank everyone here today for giving me 2 rounds of applause. I don't know what else to say. I'm humbled and honoured to be among you. So thank you. And
just, I suppose, succession planning at board level as well. There will be elections over the next couple of years. Just FYI, the job description for the president is quite simple. The president does everything. They run up and down the road. But I can highly recommend it.
Hi, I'm Margaret Lee. I'm a midwife and a lecturer in Trinity. I'd like to share everybody's opinion here that it was really a stimulating and a dynamic debate. I think a debate on technology and the appropriate use and the overuse of technology today is really timely, given the current controversy over the intranatal fetal monitoring guideline which has been produced, which has caused quite a lot of consternation across the country. So I think it's really important here to use this political forum to actually, raise the profile and to call again for this guideline to be withdrawn until appropriate evidence is used. Thank you.
We're now being informed that the judges are returning. So, Declan, it's up to you and me now to fill for another minute or two. Join me at the
Are you going to do a duet?
Informed how long? You say the date?
Oh.
Sorry, Declan, can I just say
Yeah.
a little, just
Barbara, is it your microphone turned on? Sorry. Is there a green light?
Is there a green light?
That's better.
I suppose I just want to talk in my role as a CPC that works along with the student midwives. And I always thought being a midwife was one of the best jobs in the world. But to be sitting here in the role as a CPC, I now know that too is one of the best jobs. Because to go to bed this Sunday night, I know I'm going to wake up in the morning thinking, yeah, it's good, it's great. I'm sorry now, I'm coughing words here. But I just want to say, to work along with students, be they undergraduates, and we're lucky enough we have postgraduates in Galway with us as well, that, we all have kind of tough days and we all have great days. And it's great to be there for students in mostly the great days, because that's what you do have is great days, but it's great to be there in the tough days with you as well. I wish you nothing but the best in your midwifery careers going forward. And I just want to say, Margaret Kuhl. Margaret Kuhl has, I've worked along with Margaret for quite a number of years now, and the CPC role that I hold today has been introduced to me, and I've been nurtured in that role by Margaret Kuhl. And I don't think I could have asked for a better mentor, ever. That's it.
Margaret Kuhl, I'm just wondering how many times you're going to be name checked today. Is anyone keeping count? We could have run a little sweepstake on that, really. But, pardon? Oh, it's going to get worse. So it's going to be a festival of leaving. Okay. You've got a green light. Are you speaking? No? Okay. We are coming towards the end of Friday evening.
Students have anything they want to say, or now that they're not being judged?
I think just before they do, there was, because it's been made mention, sorry, I didn't catch your name, the lady who's the CPC? Barbara. And FYI, Denise will tell you I'm terrible with names, so I'm liable to call you Mary later on, but... You've struck a chord with me as well, and I think we all, regardless of what division of the professions, whatever division of the register we're in, I think we all feel very passionate about nursing and midwifery and the professions. And I just remembered there one of the speakers, and I think it was the young girl at the end, made reference during your presentation to the idea of your heart, your head, your heart, and your hands. And it really, it struck a chord with me as well. It's a really good analogy of midwifery, but also of any direct nursing care. So I think that's a takeaway message that I'll be taking today. And I think following on from what you were saying, Barbara, there's a very nice quote that I've used once or twice in recent weeks, which talks about when you think about your nursing or your midwifery career. And it is basically, now I'm paraphrasing completely, but it is when I think about my nursing/midwifery career, I know that all the patients that I've met through the time may not remember my name, nor I may not remember theirs, but I know that I left a little piece of me with each and every one of them, and they with me. And that is what makes the beautiful tapestry that is my professional career. So for me, that strikes a chord. Hopefully, from a midwifery perspective, it strikes a chord with you as well. That's how I sum up my career. And I think, Barbara, you kind of reminded me of that there as well. The fact that it's one of the only professions where we can actually go to work, and part of our core function is to train and develop and mentor and guide the next generation. It's a huge privilege. So That's it. Declan, where is the judging panel? I think they might be gone down the town.
So we have sent a few delegations to them, including some very firm delegation. But
Can I say something?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Okay. Just
there's the mic.
Sorry. Just really briefly. I think when Declan and I talked about the side of the motion that we had been handed, we kind of both stopped for a minute. But I wanted to just say, I think, certainly on my behalf, and I think I can probably speak for my teammates when I say that we certainly have learned so much, and it has been a really great experience, and I think that you probably feel the same. I've learned a lot, but also I just wanted to say a quick thank you to, I'm sure that you all feel the same, but I had an amazing amount of support. Starting with my clinical preceptors, all the way to my academic advisors and lecturers. But it has been really great to see, to learn, and wow, the amount of people that are rooting for us. So that's great. Thank you.
It's better be no. I'd call it indecent to say a few words in a second.
Can I just say, you told me I was to be quiet today.
Just to say,
she hasn't managed it though, has she?
we are
right.
We have a technical.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would really like to welcome back the judging panel. I'm hoping that there's white smoke and that we have decisions.
Well, they are coming. I'm my mind made up anyway.
Just to say, it's funny we're talking about inspiration, so clearly a lot of people in the audience, from Galway, we know Margaret Cool, got inspiration from Margaret and colleagues. I look around the audience and who's inspired me. Lots of midwives here in this room have inspired me. Lots of women have inspired us. From the student perspective, one of my midwifery lecturers who taught me midwifery, whom I always embarrass in public, sitting here at the left of the audience is Mary Doyle. She was one of the reasons. So Mary's one of the reasons that I became a midwife, and you guys inspire me. I've learned so much along my journey with you, Simone, and with others. So you guys don't forget how much you can inspire confidence in those you might look up to yourselves. Actually, we get a lot of our inspiration from you.
Thank you. So, with no further ado, because it is the time is moving on a Friday afternoon. Hopefully, myself and Declan didn't do too bad a job at filling, and I'm delighted to say that the judging panel has rejoined us. Can I cautiously ask, have we got white smoke? Have we a decision? We have. Great. So Sheila, could I invite Sheila McClelland, the CEO of the Nursing and Midwifery Board, to the podium, who may announce the winners of the debate and then the ultimate overall prize for best speaker.
Well, there was messages sent upstairs, come back, what is going on up there, but we had to take time because really it was a difficult decision, and we studied it hard. So we just want to say before we come forward with the winners that the quality of the debate was excellent. It's really interesting to hear the different perspectives and how you've worked with your facilitators and you've developed your arguments. So congratulations to all of you. But as they always say, there has to be a winner. So in this case, we judged, and it was tight, but we judged that the argument against the debate won in relation to the quality of the debate. And the winner is by way of individual contribution. And again, we were really tied with this and struggled with this, but Simone, you just got ahead.
this stage then, on behalf of Dawn, Denise and Sheila and Declan, I'd just like to thank everyone for their attendance and attention and interaction today. Wish you all a safe journey home, and we look forward to seeing you in the People's Republic next year. Thank you.